So this is my first attempt at making a video here, and this video is how to use my 1 gallon per batch colloidal silver brewer to make colloidal silver. So when you get this device, you'll get two 9-inch silver wires like this already bent so that you can put them inside of a jar. And what I suggest is squeeze them so that they fit snugly. Squeeze them together there. It's a soft metal, it's easy to change. Now the goal here is to have the silver wires essentially as far apart as the jar will allow. And it doesn't have to be perfectly all the way hugging the walls. It is okay if the silver wires touch the walls. Now I'm not going to put any water in this because I will certainly knock it over and spill it if I do. But you want to fill the water up to about an inch from the narrowest place, because if you fill the water all the way up to here, then the silver wires will dissolve where they are closest to each other, and you'll notice they're further apart on either side as they angle away from each other. Now nearly every other colloidal silver brewer that you'll see on the market, they will add something like a bubbler or a stirrer, and the reason for that is because their silver wires are generally like this. And you only make colloidal silver in the water that's between the wires. With my device, all the water's between the wires, or enough of it that pretty much all of it is. And so you have this all set up. You don't need a bubbler. You don't need to move the water around. When the wires are together, close together like this, then all this water in back of it that is not between the wires is not involved in making colloidal silver, and so you need to move the water around to try and get it between the silver wires. Don't need to do that with mine because the silver wires are as far apart as the jar will allow, pretty much. Okay, so you don't need a stir bubbler because the way it is. Now the alligator clips, you can pull these apart until they're comfortable. The alligator clips bite onto the ends of the wires like alligators biting with their front teeth. The nice thing about this is that when you get through, you can just take out everything. You don't have to unhook it. There we go. Now I'm going to pull it apart even more so that now you'll find sometimes that the wires want to move around. You want them to hang straight up and down instead of like this, or like, you want them to be as vertical. And the strange thing is that you twist the alligator clips and it will pull them, make them go straight. So you go back and forth to twist them. There. Now these two wires are essentially, just a minute. Yeah, see, I was twisting it the wrong way. There. So that's pretty simple. It's all set up. You can't see the wires really clearly, but you can basically see them. Now, this is how you make colloidal silver. Okay, and with the first batch, you brew it for roughly 3 hours. Now, of course, as soon as I say that, I have to qualify it because not everybody's going to get the same quality water. And even if I say try to use steam distilled water if you can possibly obtain it, and in many countries it's not realistic or even possible to get steam distilled water, and you can make colloidal silver with any kind of water. I knew a missionary in India who had a colloidal silver brewer, and he was using water from the Ganges River to make colloidal silver. And when he told me that, I was aghast. I said, the Ganges River, that's where all the cities dump their sewer systems. The water's horrible. He said, yeah, it's true. They're really polluted with bacteria, what have you. Of course, where he is, the people all drink from the river anyway. He says that's how we sanitize the water. We make colloidal silver in it. So if nothing else, it doesn't get rid of it doesn't get rid of chemicals and poisons. We can't fix it all, but it does kill all the pathogens, all the bacteria, all the viruses are killed by colloidal silver, by silver. So this is how you make colloidal silver. And so when you have pure steam distilled water, And you might say, well, that's kind of silly to say pure steam distilled water, because isn't steam distilled water pure? Actually, it comes in varying levels of purity. It depends on the companies, how well they keep up their water distillers, how often they change the filters on them, because every water distiller also has a filter on it, because there are chemicals in our water supply nowadays which evaporate with the water because they're very volatile chemicals. And distillation doesn't remove them, but a simple carbon filter will remove them. So, I generally say brew it 3 hours with pure water. Let me get this out of the way, though. If you don't have steam distilled water, if you're using anything else, including any kind of filtered water except for the very best filters, ceramic filters, reverse osmosis, and even reverse osmosis doesn't usually remove the minerals, though there are units, the more expensive ones, that can even remove the minerals. But that's the point. If there's anything in the water, when you turn it on, within 10 minutes, usually less, the water will start to get very milky and cloudy because the silver particles that are being dissolved into the water combine with the other items in the water, minerals, chemicals, whatever there may be. So if you put the best water you can get in here, and let's say that it is steam distilled water, it's not uncommon for people to report to me that when they put steam distilled water in and turn it on, it starts to turn cloudy. And they go, well, why is that? Once again, it's back to how good a quality is the distilled water. If you don't have steam distilled water and you're using anything else, except for those certain kinds that actually remove the minerals, the very best reverse osmosis, the ceramic filters, etc., then you're going to get cloudy colloidal silver. If you get cloudy colloidal silver, then you only want to brew it 10 to 15 minutes. You don't want to brew it more than that. For one thing, in 15 minutes, it's going to look like dirty milk. And you're going to be reticent to drink it because it looks icky, but it's perfectly okay to drink, and it is effective. It's not as effective as something which is crystal clear made with the very best steam distilled water. But let's get that out of the way. If you're using anything but pure steam distilled water, you brew it 10 to 15 minutes, and that's it. There's another reason why you only do that. It's because you'll dissolve the silver wires. Now let me get something clear. You see this one's red and this one's black? Only the wire attached to the red alligator clip dissolves into the water. This wire is simply an attractor. It will never dissolve. So I recommend that people alternate the alligator clips on the wires. And they can do it every batch, every other batch, every 5 batches. The point being that you want the wires to be dissolving evenly and at the same time. Of course, you don't have to do that. You can always use the same wire, and this wire here will get thinner and thinner and thinner until it's the thickness of a hair. And in fact, before it reaches that point, you'll find you finish the batch, you start to take it out, the wire just breaks off. It's so thin. Before it gets to that point, then you order another silver wire and take the skinny one and rapid barber pull around your new wire and go ahead and dissolve the rest of the skinny one as well as the new one. Or you put this other silver wire on the red clip and you get another wire made out of stainless steel, copper, it doesn't even matter what kind of metal, to be your attractor. The problem with that is if you make a mistake and you get them reversed, you have a stainless steel wire here and a silver wire there, and you happen to get them accidentally reversed because they both look the same, you're going to be trying to make colloidal steel. You don't want to be drinking colloidal steel. So, but for people, on the average, for people using pure steam distilled water who alternate the wires and make 2 gallons a week, they'll get generally, on the average, 2 years out of a set of wires. So they dissolve slowly. Okay, so you want to be making high quality colloidal silver. Now I said 3 hours. If you have really pure, really high quality colloidal silver, with steam distilled water, then in 3 hours it'll still be crystal clear. At that point, you want to taste your water. Let me give you a tip. Before you use this thing, don't even plug it in until it's all set up like this. Then plug it in. The reason being that sometimes this gets bumped and it goes on. And if you were plugging it in when it wasn't set up just right, when you turned it on, it would the wires might be touching and they might short out or whatever the case may be. So I'm going to plug it in so you can see something. When you turn it on, that light goes on. All right. When the light doesn't go on, you either blew the fuse or something worse. But generally, there's a fuse in there so that it blows before anything else does. And you can just pop the fuse out. You unscrew this. This is the fuse. This is a 5 milliliter thick by 20 milliliter long fuse. It's 500 milliamp, or in other words, a half an amp, 250 volt. That's the kind of fuse you need. You can order them in packets of 5 or 10 off of eBay really cheap. Sometimes you can find them at a computer shop or a hardware store, but generally not. So this is how you make colloidal silver, and you do it 3 hours. If you're starting to brew at 3 hours and along comes about an hour and a half or 2 hours and it starts to get a little bit cloudy, then stop. You're done. And you don't have perfectly pure water, as pure as it could be, but you still have perfectly good. Well, what happens when you make cloudy colloidal silver? It's okay. It's safe to drink, and you're not going to turn blue, and it isn't going to hurt you in any way. And so, but if 3 hours goes by and it's still crystal clear, the wires look great. People do this. They say to me, wow, nothing seems to have changed. And I say, okay, shut it off. Here you are brewing away. Shut it off. Get a spoon. Doesn't matter if it's metal or not, by the way, because you just shut it off. And taste it. Maybe even taste a little bit of your steam distilled water and then taste the colloidal silver, because the minute you can taste anything even slightly bitter or metallic, you have at least 10 parts per million. That's all you need. You don't need to brew it any longer. If 3 hours goes by and you taste it, you can't taste anything, brew it another half hour, taste it again. Brew it another hour, taste it again. If 4 hours of brewing has gone by and you can't taste it, it could be because your taste buds aren't as sensitive as they might be, but I would stop at 4 hours anyway because you got colloidal silver in there, whether you can taste it or not. Usually I recommend you have several people taste it, and then that's even better, because people have for one thing, most women and children can taste it when men are saying, no, I don't taste anything, but sometimes if you have a child, have the child taste it. Again, taste some pure water first, and then taste the colloidal silver, see if there's any difference. And this is how you make colloidal silver. And then, oh yeah, I forgot something here. Before you put water in here, measure out 1 quart and pour it in, and it'll be roughly right here. Put a piece of tape on the water line, because when you get through brewing your first batch, let's say it takes 3 hours, and then you can taste something, then you shut it off, unplug it, take the wires out. You know why you unplug it first? Because people do this. Boink! They bump them together. If you bump it together for 1/millionth of a second, you blow the fuse. Okay, you can't even do it brief enough to keep from blowing the fuse. So you turn it off, you unplug it, you take the wires out. Now, you pour off all the colloidal silver down to the water line, and you're going to leave 1 quart of colloidal silver in the jar as starter for the next batch. People say, can I put a lid on it? Yeah, you can put a lid on it. You can put a cloth over it. Keep the dust out, because it might sit there for a few days before you make another batch. The point here being that with 1 quart or a fourth of the gallon as starter, you see a quart and a liter, I'm going to treat them the same. Okay, this is a 4-quart jar, not a 4-liter jar, but if it was a 4-liter jar, it would only be slightly bigger, so it doesn't matter. If you leave a fourth of it, then it reduces the brewing time by 2/3. So if it took you 3 hours with just steam distilled water, it'll only take you 1 hour when you leave 1 quart in there. This means that you can churn out 3 quarts or 3 liters per hour of colloidal silver, hour after hour after hour. That's the fastest production you're going to find going around. I can't think of anything else to answer here, so I'm going to stop this.